Hello, all you wonderful people out there. I just want to give you a few tips this evening on practical things you can do to beat depression and anxiety. Particularly anxiety for some reason. It seems like I meet so many people dealing with anxiety and just having a really hard time beating it. A little bit of my background. I've spent about 22 years helping people with their health. The last 10 years focusing mostly on emotional health. Currently, I'm a certified emotion code and body code practitioner, and I've got very lucky to have clients all over the world who call me to have me help them with getting more peace and joy in their life. And what I do for people is using applied kinesiology, we track down and reset very specific underlying imbalances for people like that, and really shift their emotional health in 60 minutes. But what I do is a very reactive process. Is fixing problems, right? And one of the most important things I tell my clients is that in combining reactive things, you really have to also be very proactive, okay? You have to really aggressively go after creating something and not just wait for different emotions to happen. So here are some very simple tips. Now, a lot of these resources you can find on my website. My website is theemotionresetcoach.com, theemotionresetcoach.com, and you'll see the button resources there, and I've got a whole bunch of stuff under there for you. A lot of blogs and podcasts and videos. I search stuff, all the best stuff out there all the time. So one of the first things is to beat depression and anxiety is breathe. That may sound weird, but breathing is the remote control for your brain, okay? Especially with, people dealing with anxiety, they're just so stressed out, right? And one of the problems is your physical body, you get so stressed out, your physical body, your nervous system doesn't know that you're actually not being chased by a pack of wolves, okay? It literally thinks you're about to die, okay? And so when you get that stressed out, bam, shuts off your immune system, freaks out your nervous system, everything goes on. So let me ask you this. If you were being chased by wolves or a bear or about to actually die, would you breathe like this? No, you would not. You'd be like, or, hardly breathing at all, right? And so when you take nice deep breaths in, one thing, it's telling your nervous system, hey, dude, you can chill out, okay? You're not actually going to die right now. It's going to be fine. So that's one thing, breathe. Now, one thing I find with clients, and this is a good insight for you, a lot of times if people are super stressed out, their immune system is whacked too, and so a lot of times they're getting sick a lot. And so a lot of times what I'll do for people, and I do this, all my sessions are by phone or Skype, what I'll do for people is measure how well their immune system is working. And for a lot of people, their immune system is, if they're very stressed out, it's functioning very low because your body is saying, hey, we don't need to put any resources in your immune system. It needs to all go to running away, okay? So if you measure someone's immune system being very low, you can fix it like that. You can take 6 nice deep breaths, back out, and between each breath, just say something like this, very simple. I forgive everyone and everything, especially myself, and I'm so grateful for the life I have. You do that 6 times, and typically, bam, your immune system turns right back on. So, suggestion number 1, breathe. Start breathing, okay? Very broad suggestion number 2 is the more you are into your having problems with getting in your head, the more you need to get in your physical body, okay? What I believe is you are a spirit, you have a soul. Your soul is your mind, your will, your intellect, emotions. You can't separate your spirit and your soul, but you can divide them for means of study and understanding, and you live in a physical body. And when you're living in this physical body, they're all attached. And so one thing you can do is you can take your physical body when your soul that has all your emotions in it is not cooperating. You take your physical body and you can jerk it in a certain direction and it yanks your emotions in the same direction, okay? So, for example, massive, aggressive exercise, lifting heavy weights, bam, can change your hormone levels very quickly. Even just doing something very simple, maybe not in a gym rat, but hey, take a walk twice around the block at a speed that you would walk if you were late to a super important meeting or about to miss a plane, okay? You do that twice, typically work better than an antidepressant, okay? For me, I know that I must exercise. It's just, hey, it's just the way I am. If I don't, I deal with the blues a bit, okay? And I am a professional, emotion code, body code practitioner. I mean, that's what I do for a living, is reset people's emotional health. But I know for me to have peak mental emotional state, I got to exercise. So another way to get in your physical body is, one thing I do a lot is I'll get up, and the first thing I do in the morning is as cold a shower as possible. Boom, bam, it just shocks my body into a certain state, okay? So step number 2, the more you're having problems with your mind, the more you need to get into your physical body, okay? Number 3, often people have a certain recipe for being very depressed or having high anxiety. For example, if you were super depressed, and I'm like, wow, you're impressively depressed, and I wanted to be as depressed as you, I would ask you a few questions. And here's what I would ask you. I'd be like, hey, Susie, let me ask you a few questions. I'd like to be as depressed as you. I think I'm just going to model you, okay? You're like, okay, whatever. So I'm like, look, I need to know a few things. When you're super depressed, are you looking down or are you looking up? You're like, I look down. I'm like, check, I can do that. How about your shoulders? Are they slumped forward or are they back and open? You're like, that'd be slumped forward. Okay, got it. I can do those 2 things. How about breathing? Shallow breathing, deep breathing. You're like, pretty much breathe shallow when I'm depressed. Like, okay, you're shuffling around, or are you like walking, moving vigorously? You have to be shuffling, right? Okay, how about what are you thinking about? And you can tell me what you're thinking about. I'm like, check. I have your recipe for being super depressed. I'm pretty sure I can do it. Okay, so a lot of times what people do is they have depression or they have anxiety and they wait for for something to change their emotions, okay? Or they try to change their emotional health. And changing your emotions with emotions is a very slow and not very reliable process. What you want to do is you want to change your emotions with physiology first. Boom. Definitely the fastest way to do it. So if I was depressed, but all of a sudden I did this, put my hands above my head, put my shoulders back, and breathe deep, put a smile on my face. It can be very difficult for me depressed, okay? And, jump-starting your emotions like that can be very helpful, all right? So that'd be 1, 2, that'd be number 3. Think or understand that you typically have a recipe or a ritual for being in a certain emotional state, and you have got to radically recognize the ritual, radically change it. The first thing to do is change it with your physical body, right? And then also try changing it with your emotions on top of that. So also a few nutritional suggestions, okay? One thing to understand is your brain uses a massive amount of the nutrition you swallow, okay? And, you can't run your body on junk and expect your brain to work. This is not going to work, okay? I knew of a small inner city private Chicago school, all the stereotypes you think of, poor and black and major issues with ADD and behavior problems and all across the board, right? And one of my maniac friends who had gotten very good results with a certain supplement for his ADD went in there. He's like, look, we're going to get all the teachers and all the students on enough of this supplement for a semester, and we're just going to see if it works based on teacher-student GPA. And in one semester, they had a 9/10 point improvement in grade point average. Just like, boom, right? Just better nutrition. I also know of one particular study they did in a prison where they gave people just a standard amount, not therapeutic, just a standard amount of fish oil and a few other things, and they had radical changes in behavior, okay? I think it's Dr. Daniel Amen who says, look, he goes, if you if you give me the blood work of someone who's in jail, and I look at their nutritional deficiencies, he goes, often I can tell you actually what they're in jail for, which is a pretty bold statement. So nutritionally, a couple very simple things. Fish oil, you've got a fatty brain, you need to give it good fat. High amounts of very effective fish oil can make a huge difference for people. Years ago, my pastor sent me a young man who was dealing with depression, was suicidal. And by the way, if you are suicidal and you have a note and a plan, go see a health professional. Don't call me. You need professional help. I'm not here to help you with that, okay? So he's like, I don't know what else to do for this guy. He's having major issues. So I did a bunch of testing for him. We tracked down and released some, energetic issues. But when I tested him, he had a very high need for fish oil. And one of the big problems, and sometimes this is a key for people, is some people have a very high need for healthy fat, but their body's not digesting fat, okay? So you got to add high quality fish oil or healthy fat with an enzyme that specifically will help digest that fat. Anyways, I told this young man, I'm like, look, I go, you really need this amount of fish oil with an enzyme. And I said, do not run out. Like, it's a very serious, don't run out. Maybe a month or two later, he called me from the county mental hospital. And I'm like, oh, nice to hear from you. I go, did you run out? He goes, yes, I ran out. I go, hey, at least now you know. Don't run out again. Okay. So fish oil, super, super helpful. Also, one thing that I love recently for improving mental, emotional health and anxiety especially, is something called EHT. If you go to ehtresults.com, I've seen just stunning results for people. Basically, it's a brain supplement developed at Princeton, increases neuronal connections. Okay, what I would say is it increases turns you from dial-up to broadband. And if anyone knows, dealing with a slow internet connection is super stressful because you just can't handle much. So if you expand how much you can handle at a time, it makes a huge difference for people. And I've seen such good results with that for people. One other suggestion, a good example is, your hormones are massively important for your mental, emotional health. And due to our diet and the amount of stress we're under and everything, your body wants to make hormones from the food you eat. And typically, the average diet for the average person in this country is maybe 5 to 10 milligrams of plant hormone building blocks, and you need 75 to 100, okay? It's very, very involved with things like breast cancer and menopause and different things like that. But here's an interesting story for you. I had a friend who is a professional psychotherapist, and she had a client who was manic depressive, bipolar, was on tons of medications, had her therapist and 2 psychiatrists trying to keep her alive, would cut herself all the time, and she's on disability for years and years and years. And my friend, I knew her from a particular company. We were happening to be marketing a plant a supplement that produced plant hormone building blocks, okay? And she'd heard a lot of people got results with depression with this product, so she just gave her some. She's like, here, take it, try it out. She says a period of time later, this woman walked back into her office with a small cardboard box, and she put it on her desk, and she goes, I don't think I'll be needing this anymore. And my friend looked in the box, and it was full of razor blades and box cutters because the woman didn't feel a need to cut herself anymore. Crazy. And that woman got off medications and disability and all that. Anyways, so one other thing to do in terms of anxiety is stop being... I say this with all the love in my heart. Sometimes you're spending too much time thinking about yourself, okay? If you're dealing with depression, especially, forget about you and go find somebody to make their day, okay? Just that alone, you can find often tremendous benefits from just getting off focused on yourself. Start focusing on some other people. You're going to see some good results, okay? All right. Also, this is the one that's a little harder to swallow, and I'll give you my personal insight and journey. Having occasionally dealt with the blues throughout my life, fighting it all the time. At a certain point you're like, this is just my life. I'm get depressed sometimes, and you just struggle through it. And my mentor, who had very much dealt with depression multiple times in her life and is now this incredibly effective woman. I asked her one day, I'm like, so I know you've been seriously depressed. I know you've even been suicidal. How are you so functional now? And she thought for a moment. She asked me this. She goes, well, what percentage of the blues that you're dealing with is physiological and what percentage is like emotional? Because she knew I could muscle test myself on that. And I did. I'm like, no, it's about 50-50. Then she paused for a second and she goes, why don't you do emotional work around your willingness to be a victim to it? And I was like, holy crap, you're right. I've been a victim to it. That makes sense. It comes and I'm like, oh, here it is. I can't do anything about it, right? So one thing I'm going to tell you with all the love in my heart is that sometimes when you're dealing with depression, anxiety, you just have to freaking stop being a victim, okay? For example, often people, if you're dealing with anxiety or anxiety attacks and the first symptom comes along, you're like, oh no. You go like this. From an emotional state, you're like, it's an anxiety attack coming. And I'm not making light of this, okay? But I'm telling you, there's a few things you got to change. I recently worked with a woman who was, when I'm talking about anxiety attacks, she was dealing with like 200 beats per minute heart rate, major issues, okay? And putting her in the hospital, and we did a bunch of work. She's like, oh my goodness, I feel so much better. It was just like massively life-changing for her. And after 3 sessions still, she emailed me once or messaged me. She's like, I'm having another anxiety attack. And I'm like, look, I go, we've worked through a lot of stuff. You need to stop recoiling from it and massively change your physiology, okay? Don't do okay, I'm going to act like I'm having an anxiety attack. You like change the way you breathe and walk and everything about yourself. And she messaged me back later. She's like, oh my goodness, that worked, right? So, anyways, that's, it's kind of a hard pill to swallow, but sometimes people go, they call me up, they're like, oh, I don't know if you can help me with anxiety. I've done this thing, and this person didn't help me, and this person didn't help me, and this person didn't help me, and this didn't help either. And, it's like, and they play this victim role. And again, I have total compassion for you, but what I'm telling you, if you'll take it, it could potentially help you. Sometimes you have to just decide that you're going to kick depression and anxiety's ass. Okay. Sorry for the language, but just trying to drive a point home. Okay. So, one last comment is one of the simplest and easiest to implement, and it's brain entrainment audios or binaural audios. Okay. And what this is just technology. Gotta love technology. So, you can measure people's brain waves and tell what state they're in, like delta, alpha, theta, whatever. Oh, they're sleepy, they're focused, they're got their creative mind thing going on. Oh, they're ready, their brain's ready to, program their subconscious, whatever. Tons of different things. So what you can do, a binaural audio, brain entrainment audio, is when you listen to music with headphones, okay, very important, and you have one frequency going in one ear and a different frequency going in the other ear, your brain will split it and will start vibrating at the difference, okay? Tons of research out on this. So what you can do is you can take audios that are specifically designed to put your brain in a certain state, okay, and it kind of hijacks your brain, right? So my initial experience was this, in 2008. Anyone else have a really crappy 2008? Like what hit the fan? Hey, that was our life. I had, before 2008, I was making, $10,000, $12,000 residually every 28 days, whether I was working or not. By the way, you can get used to that if you've never had that before. And all of a sudden, the economy went down the crapper, and I'm like, my house value went down the crapper, and I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to make my mortgage payment, and how am I going to feed my children, how am I going to make my car payments, and I'm lying in bed going, just freaked out. And when you freak out too much, you're like, I can't move forward. Well, listening to binaural audios, brain entrainment audios, was the one thing that got me out of that, got me calmed down. Okay, now I'm going to start moving forward, okay? Making progress, all right? And so, you can look that stuff up on YouTube. There's apps for it. There's tons of different companies that feel they have wonderful products. I'm going to try and put a link to a Dropbox folder where I have some of my favorites on there. Really love them, different things for different things. If you have a hard time focusing in getting things done, very easy to put some of these audios on, press play, and all of a sudden you're like, you're in the zone. You just start getting things done, not distracted, going, right? You can have audios for procrastination. The Schumann resonance is very good at integrating the back of your brain to the front of the brain. It's like, I think of things, and now I'm going to implement them. I'm going to follow through, right? Different things like that. Anyways, for all the people who are watching here, anyone have any quick questions for me before we end this? Going once. Going twice. See people from New Zealand. See friends in Texas. See people, my peeps in Georgia. Hi, Susanna. How are you? Anyways, I hope this was helpful. Please share it with some friends. There's some very practical stuff in here that can really change some people's lives. And hope you all have a wonderful Wednesday evening. Thanks.